All right, guys, push fittings, or as they're more affectionately called, Sharkbite fittings. Now, I do use these, and I'll tell you what I like about them, but I'm also going to tell you what I don't like about them. I'll tell you what I use them for and what I don't use them for. That's all coming up, so stick around. All right, guys, Sharkbite fittings. What are they all about? Now, Sharkbite fittings, I believe, according to the Sharkbite website, was introduced sometime in 2004. And since then, these fittings have seemed to taken over the world of plumbing, at least for the novice in the business. I don't know that too many professional people are using these fittings, but before I jump down and show you some examples down here, I just want to pull up, I Googled, was looking for some information in terms of, their approvals. And as you can see here, they have some certifications, and I'm going to leave the link to what you're looking at here down in the description box below the video, so you can actually go read that for yourself. But essentially, it's approved by the Uniform Plumbing Code, the National Plumbing Code of Canada, and the International Plumbing Code. Now, I will say this, with all these certifications, we are not allowed to use them here in New York City. And I will show you a bulletin here, which is Buildings Bulletin 2010-010. And I'm going to leave the link to this bulletin down below, but essentially, without going over this whole report here, I'll leave that, like I said, for you to read down below. But I'm going to bring this little paragraph up here, if I can. And there it is. There is the key phrase: removable mechanical joints are prohibited. So basically what they're saying is, if you can disassemble these joints, you can't use them. Now, there are companies that do make push fittings that are not removable, meaning once you get them in there, you can't take them out. They are approved. We are allowed to use them. So with that little bit of information, let me bring up here a Sharkbite fitting. This is a Sharkbite coupling. And simply, the way these work is you would just push the pipe. You would push the pipe into them, and with a series of metal teeth, they would latch on to the fitting, and they don't come out. And we'll go into that a little further. But first, let me say this. As a professional plumber who does this for a living, I have my reservations about the longevity of the gaskets that they use to actually prevent the leak, which is basically an O-ring washer. There's an O-ring washer on both sides, and I'll bring a cutaway of this up in a second. And I don't know, in my mind, I don't see a rubber gasket as a long-term fix. They claim, I believe, 25 years. 25 years, you build a house, and 25 years later, you're going to face the possibility of your plumbing leaking. I don't think so, at least not in my world. Now, if you go to the Sharkbite website, and again, I'll leave a link down below, I mean, they claim you can use these inside of walls, inside of concealed spaces. You cannot do that here. Again, I can't use them here because they're removable. So as far as the code goes, it's a no-brainer. What I do use these for is in an emergency situation when I have to stop the water, it's late, I'm in a situation where I don't have time to solder or I can't get a shutdown. I do carry caps where I could just get these caps on here and I pop them on, and then I'll return the following day, following week, whatever the case may be, to make the permanent repair. I do not leave these on there. But in terms of a quick fix of getting the water stopped, they're indispensable. Now, let me just put this down, and I'm going to show you a cutaway of the fitting. All right, so let me bring this cutaway up here. And what I actually did is I went out and I invested the money in this coupling, which is about $8, and I actually cut it in half. I sliced it down the middle, and I actually did it by hand. I did it with a 32 teeth per inch hacksaw blade. But anyway, let me bring this up. You can see these two gaskets here. If I can get this in here. There's a rubber gasket here. And then you're going to see this series of stainless steel teeth in here, which are facing inwards, if you will. And then here's this sleeve. So when you push this pipe all the way up to the stop here, the idea is that these teeth latch onto the pipe, which prevent it from slipping out, and then the rubber gasket creates the water seal. Now, these are lubricated gaskets. They are lubricated, and you know, Sharkbite says that you can reuse these fittings, but I would imagine that over a period of time, that lubrication would somewhat wear off and maybe compromise the gasket. But this is a cutaway and a look at what it actually looks like inside. You know, I don't know, guys. It's a rubber. If they call it an elastomeric or elastomeric rubber gasket, you know, which I guess is a fancy word for some kind of super rubber material. But I don't know. To me, it looks like an O-ring in a faucet, and you know, O-rings and faucets eventually dry out and leak. So I don't know that I want to have this in my plumbing system. So now that you know what this looks like inside, let me just walk you through what has to be done when you're going to use these things. Now, if you're going to use them and you have to make cuts, I'm going to tell you you're going to have to use a tubing cutter. You have to cut the pipe square. You know, you're not going to be using a hacksaw blade to do this, or at least you shouldn't be using a hacksaw blade to do this. So the procedure would be, and let me show you. So we got a rough cut here, as you can see. This was a piece that was cut with a hacksaw. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my tubing cutter here, and we will cut the end off of this. And not only are you going to cut this with a tubing cutter, but after you are done, you are going to want to make sure that the fitting is deburred both inside and outside. And I will show you that in a minute, and I'll show you the tools that Sharkbite actually makes to help you do this. But I will quickly cut this end off. Bear with me. All right, so there is a fresh cut piece of tubing, and as you can see, there is an inside bar. But more importantly, this outside cut needs to be debarred, because you have that O-ring, and when you push this into the fitting, you do not want to compromise that O-ring. And it can be done. I use, in the field, I have this tool by Rigid, which is an inside and outside deburring tool. So simply to do it inside, you're going to give it a couple of turns. You can go back, forth. You can go one way. You can go back and forth, whatever your pleasure is. That takes care of the inside, and then we'll use the outside portion to smooth the outside. So we took that roughness away, both inside and outside. And Sharkbite provides several tools. This is one of their depth gauges, and basically what you should do is you put a mark right at the end here. You can use a marker, a magic marker, pencil, whatever the case may be. But in addition to a depth gauge, this tool actually has, I don't know if you can see those little wheels on there, but that's a deburring tool, but it only does the outside. It doesn't do the inside. So whenever you're cutting copper tubing, you do need to deburr both the inside and the outside. So you can just run this over the outside, and you can see it makes a nice clean edge, so that when you do push this in, it's going to not compromise that O-ring. And let me just grab this pencil here, and I'll give you a demonstration. So, for instance, we're going to stick this in the depth gauge here, and then I'm going to mark this with my pencil. So now you can see my pencil line, and the idea is when you put these fittings on, you have to push them up to that line. They have to go in at least as deep as that line. Now, another thing I'll point out is this. You can use this on copper tubing. You can use it on PEX tubing. And they supply you already installed in the fittings with these. These are inserts for PEX tubing. And if you're going to use PEX tubing, you have to leave those inserts in there to stiffen up the PEX. But in a copper application, I remove them. You don't need them. So let me see if I can get this thing out of here. Just want to fold up. And I mean, simply to get them out, I basically grab it, and there's the insert. So that's what the insert looks like. And if you're going to use this in PEX, you would simply stick it inside the PEX, and that's going to allow it to stiffen up when you put your Sharkbite fitting on there. But we're going to take this piece of copper that we just deburred, which is right here, and there you can see I took the insert out. I still have the insert in the other end, because you can, do PEX on one end, copper on the other end, and essentially, let me turn it around so we can see the mark here. All right, there's our mark. There's the end without the insert, and essentially, you give it a little twist and a push, and as you can see, we're on there. Now, what I do like about this is that you're able to rotate the pipe even after you insert it and it's locked, and that is a watertight seal. And I guess just for the sake of demonstration purposes here, let me pull this other insert out. And let's take this piece of PEX and let's mark it. We'll put it in our gauge here. And we'll mark it. Make sure that's in there. And we'll come in the other end here. And we'll simply you gotta twist it to get it in there. And as you can see, I'm up to my mark. And they're in there, they're not coming out. So from the standpoint of connecting different materials and, ease of use, transitioning from one to the other, it's relatively simple. And in order to remove them, Sharkbite makes several tools, but the least expensive of them are these little plastic clips, and you'd have to buy one for each size. So this is a 3/4 inch clip that goes with this 3/4 inch tubing. Down on the bench here, there's a 1/2 inch clip, goes with the 1/2 inch tubing. And you would put that on, and the idea is to push in that. You're going to see this little plastic. This has to be pushed in. When you push in on this, it releases the teeth. And you really have to give it a kind of a strong push on there. And you push it, and as you can see, it comes out. And again, like I said, Sharkbite says that you can reuse these fittings. I don't know how many times you could use them before you chance compromising that O-ring, but They are removable, and in lieu of this fitting, if you don't have a fitting like this, I mean, you could just simply, with an adjustable wrench, you would adjust the wrench to the outside diameter of the tubing, excuse me, of the tubing you're working with, and just, push that up against that plastic sleeve to release the teeth, and it'll come off. They also make what would appear to be a pair of tongs, where you could just put this pair of tongs on there and squeeze them together. But again, you have to buy, for each size pipe. So, 3/4, half inch, 1 inch, whatever size pipe you're working on. And yeah, I mean, that's how simple it is. So I use these to make temporary repairs. That's my use of Sharkbite fittings. I carry 3/4 inch, half-inch caps, couplings, and I also use these repair couplings where you're able to make a repair in between two pieces of pipe. You can slide this on literally on the pipe and then slide it back. You make a temporary repair, kind of similar to a union fitting, but they're particularly great when you can't get a water shutdown, 100% water shutdown, because the water can be actually running, and you can still use these and make a watertight leak. But again, I'm going to return the following day, the following week, and I'm going to make a permanent repair with a soldered joint. So I believe they do have their place in the service business. For me, that's to make quick temporary repairs. Like I said, long term, guys, it's an O-ring. It's an O-ring washer. So you can make that judgment as to whether you want to trust that O-ring to last a lifetime. I know if I solder a joint, I'm going to be golden. O-ring washer, I don't know. If you're going to use them, I would advocate that you use them in a exposed situation, on the ceiling, in the basement, in a garage. I would not put these inside the wall. I can tell you that I've seen on YouTube, people have done a freeze test, and whereby they put a cap, a Sharkbite cap, on each end of a piece of PEX tubing and a piece of copper tubing, and in both cases, uh, the ice has expanded and literally like pushed the cap off. Not all the way, but it's pushed it out of the way to the point where when the ice thawed out, I'm sure you would have a leak. So, I mean, that's it, guys. If you're going to use these, I would certainly tell you to go out and invest in one of these depth gauges slash outside deburring tools. You're going to want to get one of these removal tools. They're relatively cheap. Or you can use, like I said, you can use an adjustable wrench to push in on that plastic sleeve there. But these are relatively inexpensive to buy. Again, you're going to have to buy a removal tool for each size, depending upon the size of pipe you're working on. Cut it with a tubing cutter. You want to have square ends, nice square ends on it. For instance, here, I'm going to show you this piece of copper was cut prior to me shooting the video, and simply you want to deburr the inside. Deburr the inside, and then you want to give it a shot on the outside. And if you don't have one of these tools, you grab the Sharkbite tool here with the outside deburring tool on it, and you want to put a nice smooth outer edge on that tubing so that when you push it inside the Sharkbite fitting, it doesn't compromise that O-ring. So that's it, guys. That's my take on Sharkbite fittings. I don't believe they're a long-term fix. That's my opinion. You go on the Sharkbite website, they have a differing opinion, but in my mind, a soldered joint is golden. O-rings, to me, are just an accident waiting to happen, and that's even true, I believe. I don't know if you guys heard of this new press technology with press fittings, where They're fittings where you stick the pipe in there and you have this tool where that actually crimps and presses the joint, but the seal is made with an O-ring. And I'm just wondering how many years it's going to take for that class action suit to take place. Again, just my opinion. I could be wrong. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got some value out of it. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. So there you go, guys. That's my take on Sharkbite fittings. I believe they have a place, but in my case, I use them mainly for emergency situations where I have to make a quick fix. But don't forget, I always return the following day and I make a permanent fix with a soldered joint. That's just what I believe. I can't get my head around that O-ring lasting long term, but that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're getting value out of my videos, I would encourage you to subscribe. Also hit that like button. Don't forget to keep an eye out for one of these two videos that are going to pop up here to your right. One of them my shows, one of them YouTube shows. I want to thank you once again for coming by the channel. As always, stay well, and until my next video, happy plumbing.